We'll now call the August 27th, 2019 regular meeting of council to order. First off, I'd like to recognize a few delegates in the room. Councillor George Lamprow from the First Nation, welcome. And Regional District, Fraser Fort George, Area H Director Daniel Allen, thank you for coming. Item 2.1, adoption of the agenda for this evening's. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor MacLean, any additions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carries. We now have time for item 3.1, public comments. Just a quick preamble. Please keep public comments regarding an item on the current agenda that be put forth on topics that are not normally dealt with by village staff. They should be addressed through myself, and answers given likewise. Debates with or by individual members of council or staff are not allowed during this time. No commitment shall be made by council in replying to a question. Matters which may require action of council shall be tabled to a future meeting. Most importantly, bylaws and temporary use permits that have been considered at a public hearing but have not yet received final approval shall not be raised during this time. Individuals must state their name and area of residence for identification purposes, and questions and comments will be limited to 2 minutes, notified by this handy dandy timer, beginning after I welcome you for your comment. Are there any public comments this evening? Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Just your name and your area of residence, please.
My name is Nancy Weatherby from Mount Robson.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On behalf of the Valemount Arts and Cultural Society, we would like to thank the Council for the on-site meeting last week. It was a good chance for everyone to have a first-hand look at the placement for the Bigfoot sculpture and further discussion on winter maintenance on site. We're hoping that it also answered some of the questions that were brought up at the presentation at the last Council meeting. The CPT Public Art Initiative is not about branding the community. It is to include artists and art pieces in the community. The sculpture was adjudicated and accepted by the CBT along with other artist applications from the Columbia Basin communities as a qualified art piece. As mentioned in the previous week's presentations, we have had discussions with community businesses and societies. We thank Three Ranges Brewery, Mountain Driftwood Gallery, Patricia Tony at Caribou Grill for sending their support. There has also been support in letters to the editor in the local Rocky Mountain Goat newspaper, and the online copy of the editorial of the Rocky Mountain Goat has also brought favorable comments. The Bigfoot has gained momentum. Dax is looking at a much bigger picture than this small sculpture. We would like to give 5 reasons why public art matters in a broader term from the website of Public Art and Civil Design. Number 1, economic growth and stability. 75% of the national population believe that art improves the image and identity of their community. Number 2, attachment to cultural identity. Public art directly influences how people see and connect with a place. Aesthetics is one of the top 3 characteristics why residents attach themselves to a community. Number 3, artists as contributors. By validating artists and important contributors to the community, artists are highly entrepreneurial and often self-employed, adding to community dynamics. Number 4, social cohesion and cultural understanding.
Thank you, Mrs. Weatherby. Are there other public comments this evening? Yes.
Evening, Jamin, Valemount, BC.
Welcome.
I am very much in support of the Bigfoot Trail marker. I'm kind of curious why, according to the map that is relocated in the playground area. It's an old map that's showing online. So by the X, it looks like it's inside the park. And with the concern for public safety, why would you put it into an area where there are going to be kids crawling all over it versus on a walkway? I'm not quite sure why. I'd also like to say that when Margaret McCurdy used to greet me when she used to live in Valemount, her first comment was always, the future of Valemount lies in its artists. And quite a number of times she addressed me in this fashion. And I think it's really important. It's important for our town as well, that artists be given the ability to express how they see the world around them. It's good for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comments this evening? Yes.
Jennifer Applebaum from Valemount.
Welcome.
So it's kind of difficult to comment on a delegation that I haven't heard yet, or know what council is going to bring up in questions, but I wanted to address the pipeline coming in as it relates to housing. I'm sure you all know I'm the local property manager. I sit on the housing committee, and there are some concerns that have been brought up for the local impact of all these people coming into a very small community. So we are anticipating, huge economic benefits from the number of people coming in, but it's also going to add pressure on already strained businesses, resources, services, and housing is one of those. As one of the first points of contact for tenants looking for housing or investors looking to maybe own a rental house, I'm hearing lots of kind of numbers being thrown around and dates and stories about people holding back rentals, waiting for the rich pipeliners to come in. And it's, everyone's free to make money. The problem is that local businesses that are struggling to find staff and they find people to move to Valemount, those people can't find housing. So it's just something to keep in mind that there is, until the camp gets set up, and I don't know how many people will be in the camp, there is going to be extra pressure. I think everyone just needs to be aware of that. And I'd like to make a suggestion, and I don't know if this is being discussed or if this is the appropriate place, but that the Trans Mountain or Ledco or the other large companies that are coming through town consider setting up some sort of legacy funding or community contribution towards a housing initiative, maybe contact the local housing society that is struggling with, volunteers to try and create housing for the community. It may not happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional public comments this evening? Yes.
Margaret Kinley. My property is at 225 Sunnyview Road.
Thank you.
I live in town.
You're welcome. Welcome. No, you're welcome.
I'm dealing with Trans Mountain Pipeline. I'm feeling very frustrated that they're bullying me to sign papers to allow them entry for a small fraction of the price I was offered before. I was offered $150,000 for loss of use of my land. They said they felt that was their suggestion, and they said that was the fair price they felt, and I agreed. Now they're pushing me to sign for $5,481 for right-of-way and $391 for workspace. And they've been very aggressive about it.
Thank you. Additional public comments this evening? Yes. Right in the back there, and then the young lady to the left next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Michael Peters from Valemount, just outside on Pine Road.
Welcome.
I want to speak with regards to the public art project. I'm a great supporter of public art in communities. I think it's a wonderful addition to the community. However, in this case, I think there should have been some public consultation, and there was none. And consequently, we have a project coming forward that many people don't know what it's about exactly, and a lot of people don't agree with the actual concept that was presented. So I just wish that there had been some public consultation with regards to this project so that we could all have had a say in what goes on in terms of placing something prominently in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comments this evening? Yes.
Danelle Beeson, 916 Main Street.
Welcome.
Thank you. I also wanted to address community concerns which come along with rumors of possibly doubling our population with the Trans Mountain Corporation coming to town. And wanted to say that I caught your interview on CBC this morning with Mayor Torgerson, and that was really great.
Thank you.
I really appreciated all the items you addressed that you wanted to bring up as questions, I think, for the Trans Mountain Corporation. And I wanted to add one, ideally, wondering what their plan is regarding their social responsibility to our community and our people here. And requesting that hopefully they'll connect with Robson Valley Community Services, where I work as a program supervisor, so that we can hopefully address some of those concerns together and serve our population.
Did you bring a business card?
You know what, I did, and it's in the truck, but I can bring it in after. Thank you.
I'm sure Jasmine has one she can give you. Thank you. Additional public comments this evening? Hearing none, council motion to receive public comments. Councillor G, Councillor Pearson. All in favor of receipt? Carries. Item 4.1, adoption of the minutes of the previous regular meeting of council, that being August 13th, 2019. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor MacLean, are there any errors or omissions that stick out? Hearing none, all in favor? Carries. .1, we have a delegation from the Trans Mountain Corporation to provide a project overview, that delegate being Jasmine Devick. The floor is yours. Just a fair warning, procedurally, we are limited to 15 minutes, but if council feels the need for further time, we'll just have a quick vote, and if they're in favor, we'll proceed further.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, for having me here this evening. I hope to address some of the topics and issues that have come up through your public comments, and hopefully this presentation will help outline some of the mitigation methods that we want to have in place. So I know that some members of Council and Your Worship have been presented previously when we came to Valemount to apply for original TUP for the original camp location. So this will provide an update and a little bit of an overview for new council members, just as to where we've been and where we hope to go. This is a map of the twinned pipeline that Trans Mountain will be proceeding to construct starting this year in 2019. This area is in an area called Spread 3. It doesn't really mean anything to anybody but us and the NEB, but that is how we refer to the Valemount area. It is a twin pipeline system from Edmonton to Burnaby. It's in this area, it's actually a 42-inch diameter pipe to deal with some of the power issues in the Robson Valley. We will be reactivating 2 existing segments, one in the Kamloops area and one north of here in the Jasper area. We had 156 conditions that were put forward by the National Energy Board and 37 conditions put forward by the BCEAO. We got 16 new non-binding recommendations from government agencies earlier this year when the NEB was asked to come forward and look at the offshore shipping, because that doesn't exactly lie in their purview. They only deal with things that are in the pipe. So the offshore wasn't exactly their area of expertise, but they had the most experience when it came to our products. Just last week, some mayor and council might have seen a construction restart issued out to the general public. This is on our website. It's a very exciting and long overdue statement saying that we are going to restart construction on our expansion project. In 2019, we will be focusing on the Edmonton and Edson area in Alberta, as well as Burnaby at the other end. Those are predominantly the terminal locations. They're very long lead items, so they are the specific areas that need to get started first in order to adhere to our 24-month build period. You might have seen advertising like this take over your paper. They are very harsh and not very descriptive either. They ran just a couple weeks ago in the Rocky Mountain Goat, and they are a regulatory commitment of ours from the National Energy Board before we commence construction in any areas. For yourself and other community members who would like to be kept up to date, if you go to our website at transmountain.com, as soon as you log on, it will geolocate you as to where you are within the pipeline, and it will bring you up-to-date information on local construction and local activities. There'll be a summary of it, expected timelines, and then it will also have more detailed information below. I'm just trying to, there's also an email subscription offer. You can go onto our website and type in your email address, and you can check off which communities you would like to receive updates about if that's something that interests you. This is a static image of our interactive map in the Lower Mainland and the types of things that you would see, whether it be upcoming construction or current. These notice of activities, staff certainly will have seen. We put these out when we will be starting to proceed within an area. It outlines the types of activities, the sights, sounds that people would hear for residents, and an outline of the description of the work, along with contact information and maps for individuals to get a better idea. In this community, it was particularly impressed upon us by outdoor organizations like VARDA and YORA that there is a fair amount of individuals who use our right-of-ways as trails. So understanding that this is an area, a unique area of impact within this region, we will have signage like this posted in any of the trailheads where we might have recreation users coming in contact with construction. Our number one goal being safety at all times for not only individuals, but also our workers and our pipelines. So you will see signage like this in and around the areas of the right-of-way in the Valemount area. Now, to get into an overview of this area. So this is contained within an area called Spread 3-4A, which I already indicated doesn't mean much, but it is the Robson Valley, North Thompson. It's 201 kilometers of pipeline from Mount Robson Provincial Park to north of Vavenby at our stockpile location. There'll be 2 temporary worker accommodation sites within that spread, 3 pump stations, and 4 high directional drill crossings. Our general contractor is still Ledcor Seacham, and the organization that will be working on our pump stations is called Cord. It used to be called Worley Parsons Cord. They are now just Cord. Talking about project benefits for Valemount, this is a $7.4 billion construction project. That number was calculated back in 2014. So we know that if you were to add a deck onto your house and you got a quote in 2014 and you went back in 2019, the probability of that contractor adhering to that quote is probably not very good. So we know that that number will be higher. We do not have a exact calculation at this point in time. That's part of our planning process that we're undergoing right now. But one of the important indicators is that 1/3 is set to be spent in the Robson Valley and the North Thompson area. The Village of Valemount in particular has $185,000 of a community benefit agreement. This was signed back in February 2015. You were one of the first communities to sign on with our community benefit agreement program. Our CBAs are an acknowledgement of the fact that we will be disruptive in your community while we are constructing. And this is a sum of money that we hope can go towards community initiatives that you would foresee to be an overall benefit. We are very hands-off on what that is. And there were some projects that were identified, but that was back in 2015. So understandably, either they've been completed or this is a new mayor and council, you might have different priorities. The regional district of Fraser Fort George is set to get over $4 million in tax revenue per year. And of course, there's also going to be lots of local business opportunities and local and regional hires and local accommodation. We will be within the construction of the pipeline in this area. Of course, we skirt around the area of Valemount, but we will be doing we will not be, but BC Hydro and TELUS will be working on relocation of utilities if there's an intersection with the right-of-way. They tacked on to our right-of-way in several locations, and so we need to work together to try to make sure there's no interruption in service. There will be spawning deterrent mats relocated in this area as per the NEB's requirements and their scientific researchers on what is going to be the best for salmon in this area. There will also be mobilization and access roads that we will need to forge in order to get to our right-of-way, and then, of course, clearing of the right-of-way. Oh, sorry, hit the wrong button. As I previously mentioned, there's going to be 2 temporary worker accommodation sites. It says Valemount and Blue River. Of course, since our initial planning phase and working with Modi and some of the concerns that they have, the original location at Cranberry Marsh is just not a very feasible one due to their requirements on highway access upgrades. So a secondary site was always identified through the NEB process at the Valemount Community Forest site. And so we are proceeding with that site as our camp location.
Just to clarify, that's on the south side of Whiskeyfield Road?
That's correct.
Thank you.
We will also have 2 construction yards and stockpile sites, one in Valemount and one in Blue River. This picture here was actually taken 2 weeks ago of the Valemount stockpile site at the community forest where we are unloading pipe and working on pipe repair. The hot topic, Trans Mountain expansion accommodation. So, temporary worker accommodation sites are used when a construction project is located in an area where local accommodation is insufficient in scope, or when using local accommodation will place an extraordinary burden on a community. Valemount, when we originally went out in our fact finding to craft some of our reports that are part of those conditions that I previously mentioned, was indicated that it would be a negative impact for us to attempt to house local workers for an extended period of time within the accommodation options within Valemount. Varda and Yora also articulated this concern as well when it comes to local tourism opportunities. So we engaged with communities to develop our plans, and we filed our plans with our regulators, and this is where the decision was made that a temporary worker accommodation would need to be put in this area. As indicated by the yellow triangle, that is the location. You can see just above it and to the left is the existing footprint of the Valemount Community Forest, and we would just tuck in under that. It's still area owned by them, but it's largely underdeveloped at this point in time. There'd be some clearing. All of the worker accommodation sites are full service, so they include laundry, dining, recreation. We also have a commitment to health and medical. Previously, when we were in Valemount meeting with various industry regulators, whether it be Northern Health, your local BC ambulance here, and your RCMP, and we had members of the village staff attend our site-specific emergency management planning exercises and our site-specific health and safety planning. There was some surprising revelations made. We had intended to have a fully inclusive or fully insulated model where we would not allow our workforce to use any of the local health and medical options. We would have them simply see individuals on our site. We were surprised to hear from the community at that point in time that they were looking for more of a two-way interaction because there was concerns about their staff leaving and trying to seek employment within the camp. So we will continue to have these conversations. We have been speaking to Northern Health again because they want to talk about what options that we're going to have moving forward. As previously stated, our planning is stale at this point in time. So now that we have an official notice to proceed with construction, we need to revisit some of these conversations. All of our accommodation sites include things like wastewater management, internet connections, power, so that we are not drawing upon the resources of the village. We understand that your infrastructure is here to serve your citizens and not necessarily to serve us. So we are fully understanding that. This is all of our contact information. If anybody has any questions or concerns at any point in time, they can reach out to info@transmountain.com. And there is somebody who will get back to you. We are actually committed to getting back to people within 5 business days. And there's also various contact information there. I know that this is going to come up, and I know that there are a lot of concerns about housing and impacts of low-income housing. And as a part of our project, we are committed and we are actually bound to look at the socioeconomic impacts of our project and to find ways to mitigate any negative, unforeseen, or potentially seen impacts that our project might have. We are committed to having a positive, lasting legacy, and we hope that we will leave with a great neighbor still intact, like we did when we left with the Anchor Loof project back in 2008. And that's my presentation, and I'm sure that there are questions.
Thank you very much. Motion please to receive the delegation. Councillor G, Councillor Pearson. All in favor of receipt. And then I'll just ask for a quick vote, because I know questions might take us beyond that 15-minute mark, to extend the delegation time period. Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean, all in favor of extension. Carries. Questions from council to Ms. Devick. Councillor Pearson.
Got a bit of a list. You've touched on quite a few of them. Social impact. I think partly we're looking at what the legacy could possibly look for us regarding affordable housing and that kind of development project. A couple things jumped out. Curious what the pre-camp numbers would be. We know the camp's not going to be set up until spring, so what we can anticipate over the winter as far as management and employees, that kind of thing. Do we have any ballpark numbers for that?
So our contractors have started doing some pre-planning, and we're kind of in a work back at this point in time, meaning that our contractors have been reaching out to local accommodation providers, mainly hotels and motels in the area, to determine what available numbers they might have. And based on that number, that will indicate what work we can do. We're not trying to put the cart before the horse. We're not attempting to say that we are going to do A, B, C. We are saying, how many people can we house? And what does that mean we can accomplish until the camp is in place? So there's a lot of consideration being made right now, and because of that, that is why it's a portion of why our planning phase is taking a little bit longer, because we need to have a better understanding, because we know that we have very serious commitments to the village and various other stakeholders as to what we're able to accomplish.
Okay. I was happy to see in your camp plan that it is a damp camp. I think that's a good step to keep some control over it. I think we'll still have issues because we all know people will not stay in camp, but, and then the other thing I will mention is the use of spawning deterrent mats. In light of what's happening this year with salmon, I'd really like to see any stream crossings, river crossings avoided until we know where we are with our resident stock of salmon at this end of the river.
I was actually just on a phone call today. There are no spawning deterrent mats that are going to be used in this area in 2019.
Okay, that's it for me.
That's it. Councillor MacLean?
I might have missed something, but I don't believe I heard how many people in total that there would be here, including the families and those. How many are going to be living in town as opposed to being housed in the camp?
You didn't hear that.
Oh, okay.
So with the realization that our temporary worker accommodation won't be in place until spring 2020, that is shifting our schedule. So the questions become, with that, I don't want to say delay, but with that shift in work, what will our influxes be? So without our construction schedule at this point in time, we do not have firm numbers. It is our commitment to speak to the Village of Valemount as soon as we have that construction schedule firm. With our temporary use permit that we would have to apply for with the Regional District of Fraser Fort George, that is a piece of information that we need to have. And that process takes months. So understanding that we will have that number sooner than later, but we do not have it right now.
Okay. Because that was partly my next questions, was how many of these would be requiring schooling and daycare and that kind of thing. Also our concerns about our grocery store, and that we already are food insecure, and people know that when the truck comes in, you better hit it in the morning or there won't be any lettuce or milk by night.
A lot of these concerns are ones that have been identified through a lot of our socioeconomic reporting. When we came through to do some of that reporting in 2014 and 2015, they were brought up as well. As part of having a workforce placed within your community, we have committed to a mitigation task force. So that would mean individuals from Trans Mountain, as well as either staff or council or your worship, meeting with us along with Northern Health or some of the organizations that are here today to talk about socioeconomic mitigation methods and where the rub points are, because we know that there are going to be some, and we just need to have a path in order to identify them quickly and come up with a solution.
Right. That's the thing, is they have to be identified, quickly in order to act toward mitigating them before our services are overrun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one benefit of us having a workforce that comes in staggered, is that fortunately it won't be a extreme number coming in at the onset.
Thank you.
That's it, that's all, Councillor?
That's all, thank you.
Councillor Blanchette?
So most of the questions have been answered. I do want to reiterate connecting with Robson Valley Community Services, because it's something that we really need to be aware of, and that connection and that introduction needs to be there. So that's a real need. I was really hoping for, are we going to be looking for any families that have children? Like, I know we keep asking the same thing, but like, these are things that we really need to know, because we need to prepare here for what's coming. I know you can't give us a firm number, but can you give us an idea if there's going to be families with children coming?
Most of our workforce hasn't been hired yet, so it's not realistic for me to give you a number.
Okay.
However, hearing that this is a particular concern, it's something that we can take back to Ledcor Seacham and potentially in their onboarding process, we can have people indicate if they were intending on relocating with their families, so that at the very onset of our hiring process, that we would have a better understanding of whether or not there would be families coming along with the workforce.
One of the rumors, as we call it, that we've heard is that there's going to be a certain amount of people that come at the beginning and stay here the entire time. Is that correct?
It might be in so much as management level workers. That would be the sheer nature of the project when we start with clearing. The clearing crews won't be required as we continue through that process, because we'll be attempting to clear initially. So after that would be done, that workforce would leave unless they somehow had double duties.
So I think it would be more of the management that would be coming to oversee, would probably come, set up, get organized, do that, be in charge of that clearing, stay here while everything else is being done, and then stay to tidy up afterwards. I guess it's that group of people that we're sort of wondering if they are coming in, if, is there 10, is there 40? Do they have families? So as soon as we can get that information, that's what we really need, is we need some real numbers and who's connected in those numbers.
I'm hearing that a demographic breakdown of who might be coming into your community would be helpful. So that's most certainly something that we can request of the contractor to fulfill.
Well, we want to be able to welcome people to come into the community as well, We're a great bunch here, and if we've got kids coming, we want to prepare, and the teachers need to prepare, and, all those kinds of things. Services need to get ready for, okay, we've got an influx of kids coming, what programs maybe could we run, all those kinds of things, so,
And previously, when construction was set to start last summer, we had worked very closely with Tourism Valemount to produce a package, and so we'll need to revisit that. And it was a welcome package for the workforce, outlining things like churches and businesses and recreation opportunities, and even things like the school district. So we'll have to revisit and refresh that, and that's something that we're committed to doing.
thank you very much.
Did you have any questions, Councillor?
Might have all been asked and answered.
All right. I have a few. Perhaps they'll have to be answered in a few months, as I'm hearing that the workforce hasn't been established, therefore demographics are out of the question. Specifically towards that the damp camp scenario, will you be providing a shuttle or a bus service for your workers to and from Valemount?
That is a requirement that we have asked of our contractor, in order to ensure that workers can safely come in and out of town without impacting local traffic, and also ensuring that businesses are being visited by our workforce.
And would that service be scheduled? And would locals be able to take advantage of that service?
I don't know the answer to that question. I never considered locals using that service. I would assume just for pure chaos that it would be scheduled, but that's something, if the village is looking for that, it would be something I'd be willing to talk to the contractor about.
Stay tuned. The duration of the work camp at the suggested area, how long?
Right now, the projection is 24 months of construction. So, and then there would, of course, have to be wrap up and decommissioning of the site.
What steps did you take through public consultation for that specific area?
That specific area has not gone through the public consultation process. That location was identified to the NEB as an alternate location. The Valemount Community Forest was approached for the stockpile site, and they had also suggested the area for the camp. That's why it was put forward as an alternate. The public consultation process is part of the TUP with the Regional District of Fraser-Fort George, something that they've identified that they would like the village to be very active in. That public consultation would happen after our application went in and before it went to the board. It would be held here in the village with plenty of notice. We would have subject matter experts available to answer questions, and the questions and comments posed at that public hearing would go forward to educate the board when they got to vote on the issue.
By Director Allen, who's right behind you. Do you have an idea? You make mention of spread 3. We're in spread 3, spread 4 through the North Thompson. And then throughout the permitting process and the approval process, there's mention of segments. Is that the number of pipe, the number of segments within a spread? Can you kind of give a definition around that and like geography?
Sure. So there's actually 2 ways we use the word spreads. I don't know why this is. As a communicator, it drives me nuts, but the NEB refers to them as segments, and we refer to them as spreads. They are one and the same.
Okay.
But there is also the use of the word segment when it comes to pipe. And so that would be an actual length of pipe, and they would get placed into the ground and then welded, fused together. That would be a segment. So those are the 2 definitions, and I'm unsure as to the context as to which way you're asking about segments.
Well, so for your stream crossings, is that segment so-and-so? And then you'll have roadway applications at segment so-and-so with an easting and a northing UTM code.
Yes.
Could you give me an idea in spread 3 what segment this building is closest to? Or how would I more easily interpret your approval? Yeah.
Let me think. This one, we refer to it in a completely different manner than the NEB does. We refer to it in kilometer posts. Yeah. So I don't know where this building is in the kilometer post. I would be more than happy to
Here.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to provide the council with what segment 3 entails as far as kilometer posts, but as far as segments go, that's not a language that I speak.
Okay. It's also in the oil and gas approval letters.
Yes, the OGC.
On oil and gas, your master license to cut for the clearing of the pipeline. What's plans are in place for merch and non-merch fiber?
I'm most certainly not the subject matter expert on that. I do know that we are partnering, and Ledcor is partnering very closely with SIMP on the timber market salvage plans. If you wanted more details than that, I would have to go back and be able to provide them.
Okay. So then there's no answers to anticipation of how much volume will be removed and what stumpage rate from the interior appraisal rating will be, or how your waste assessment will be completed.
That would all be as part of our timber market salvage plan, okay, which I believe is still being finalized.
Very good. Finally, the temporary use permit process through the Regional District of Fraser-Fort George requires a public hearing. So say, and it also has external technical agency referrals. So everything comes back negative. Modi doesn't want you to use Whiskey Phil. The CNR says it's too dangerous for that corner at Cedarside Road. There's opposition from the local residents. And the board votes against an approval. What kind of legislature can you fall back on to continue to use that land with or without a temporary use permit?
I'm not a lawyer. I'll start with that caveat. However, when I was just in Prince George last week talking to the Regional District of Fraser-Fort George and asked them that very question, what happens if we go through your process and it comes back negative? And the assurance that I received from the CAO and Ken Jonkman was a temporary use permit has never been declined for a pipeline project within the regional district of Fraser-Fort George.
Very good. I mean, obviously you're gonna have your ducks in a row, so I'm not too worried about that. But, there's always.
If it happened, there's been a lot of things on this project that has happened that I have never seen coming. So we will just have to roll with the punches if that's what happens.
Very good. Any other questions from council?
I do have one more. What's going to happen to any of the buildings that you bring in, whether it be for offices or for like accommodation? Do you take those with you? Do you leave some of those behind? What happens with those?
They would all be rentals. However, there have been a variety of municipalities that have indicated interest. Blue River, in particular, they have a big tourism, staffing, housing issue, and that is something that we have committed to talking about when the project is in wrap-up phase.
Okay, so if we were interested, then we will discuss it, and then we would let you know that we're interested in whatever you have or whatever, how it works.
In our, we haven't had one in a while, but in our technical working group meetings, that would be something, if it hasn't already been indicated, which I have a little remembrance, but I'm trying to figure out whether or not it was here and Blue River or just in Blue River. You would indicate that, and we would have that as part of our record that the village.
Things can be readdressed. It's a new council and there's new needs in the community, so, okay.
Further questions, council? Councilor Pearson?
I'm not sure if it applies here, it's something to be asked outside, but
Ask away.
one of the slides that went through in talking of benefits and stuff was $4 million annual tax revenues for regional district. I'm just wondering if there's any flow down regional district, village of Valemount. I mean, that's a large.
That certainly wouldn't be anything that the Trans Mountain Pipeline would dictate.
Dr. Allen already has it spent.
Yeah. I got that indication, so thanks. We'll fight about that later.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to answer your questions, and I look forward to having more conversations with harder facts in the upcoming months.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time. It's not an easy drive on Highway 5 from Kamloops to Valemount on certain days.
It's not a problem. I had other towns within my spreads to visit as well.
What segment are they at?
4B. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some unfinished business, council. Item 6.1, public art proposal. There's a couple recommendations here. I'll leave it to council. What is your wish?
I would like to move number 2, but with an amendment. I would like to ask and see if the council and the village work together with VAX and the public and readdress this again for next year's submission, and work with more of the local artists and with community members.
Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Jean? Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor that we work with VAX and to readdress this with public consultation? It carries. Item 6.2, permissive tax exemptions. I received a heads up that we have a couple of conflicts for the first one. Councillor Pearson.
Be recusing myself on the Legion issue as an executive member of the Legion.
Thank you very much.
I'll also be recusing myself as a Legion executive member.
Just leaves us quorumed chickens. So, permissive tax exemptions, discount amounts to be confirmed for the following nonprofit organizations for the 2020 tax year, each by separate resolution. So the Valemount Legion, what is council's wish? Councillor Blanchette?
I'd like to see the Legion stay at the 75%.
Will you second that, Councillor? Discussion on 75% of the Legion. All in fa-
Sorry.
Yeah.
You know, the service groups are struggling, you know, and I don't mind helping them out, you know.
Thank you. All in favor? Carries. Can somebody retrieve the other 20% of council? 40% of council? Councillors, returning for your information, resolution was carried that a 75% tax exemption would be in place for the 2020 tax year. For the Valemount Legion. Valemount Curling Club, what does council's wish? Yes.
What was it previously?
50%. Yes,
I move that we leave the curling rink at 50%.
50%. Is there a seconder there? Councillor G. Discussion on 50% curling club. All in favor of 50%? Carries. Valemount Lions Club. It's council's wish. Councillor Pearson.
I would move that it remain at the 50% as well.
Is there a seconder? Councillor G. Discussion on 50% Valemount Lions Club. All in favor of 50%? Carries. Valemount Area Recreation Development Association, VARDA. Councillor Pearson.
I guess don't really have time to discuss at this point, but at this one I would move that.
You can invoke a committee of the whole if you wish, or you could put a motion on the floor, and if it dies on the floor without a seconder.
We'll do the motion, and
Okay.
I would move that the Valemount Area Recreation Development Association be moved to 0%.
0%. Is there a seconder? Council Blanchette, second. Discussion on 0% to the Valemount Area Recreation Development Association. Council Pearson.
I look at it in a couple of ways. One, in the definition of the purposes of the permissive tax exemption, and the goals to the organization. As well, we all have copies of their financials, and they have a very healthy bank account, a very healthy income statement, and they are rather healthily supported through Valemount Tourism already, and that's my reason for going that route.
Okay. Further discussion? You already did. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor, 0% to VARDA for purpose of tax exemption. Carries. Valemount Affordable Rental Society. What is council's wish?
So I would move to 50% for this year.
For 2020?
Yeah.
Is there a seconder? It is quashed. Is there another motion? Any motion at all? Councilor Pearson.
I hate to be the bad guy again, but I also would move for VARs to go to 0% at this point, and we can discuss it after.
Is there a seconder for 0?
It's a bargain.
There's a second. Councilor Blanchette. Councilor Pearson.
Again, two things on VARs. One is, our last meeting, we just waived $25,000 in fees for development for their next portion, which is a fairly healthy help. and they are running as a business, really. I don't know. I guess it would depend on your definition of affordable, but they seem to be renting at market value or close to, and that's kind of where I feel on them. So.
Okay. Any further discussion on the 0% to VARs? Hearing none, all in favor? Carries. Does anybody wish to bring anything out of the reading file? Yeah, Councillor MacLean.
I had noticed the last time that there was a letter asking for our support in asking the provincial government to fund libraries for a program they call 20 for 20. And we have a letter here from Chetwynd asking, saying that they support it and asking other councils to do the same. And I thought that it was a good idea to support this and show appreciation for all the libraries do.
I would have, if there was a second on that motion, I'd have no issues writing a letter like that. Councillor Blanchette? Who'd have thunk? Any discussion around Councillor MacLean's motion of writing a letter in support of libraries and future funding?
Full support.
All in favor? I will pen a letter. Anything else out of the reading file? Councillor Pearson?
Just make a comment that I applaud the provincial government for putting the building code online in an updatable fashion so that it's affordable for smaller contractors and self-builders to have access to and follow. It's a very tough document to purchase. So.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Anything further? Okay, administrative reports, item 9.1, council travel budget. Recommendation here that the report be received for information. It's kind of giving us an update on our budget so thus far. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G. Discussion on the report. Councillor Blanchette.
Just to remind everybody that this was an election year and that's why the budget is the way it is. It's not normally like that. But with the first year out, it's good for all of us to attend as much as we can. We can't always, but next year will be a lesser year. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that EOS is a long, grueling session. All in favor of receipt? Carries. Item 9.2, Valemount Child Care Needs Assessment Study. The recommendation here is that the Valemount Child Care Needs Assessment and Strategy be received for information. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette. Any discussion on receipt? All in favor? Sorry.
Just compliments on the report. It's pretty in-depth.
Yeah,
well done.
I've worked with Mr. Smith in the past on another report, and it's always very well done.
Yeah.
All in favor of receipt? Carries. Tourism, 9.3, Tourism Valemount Committee, Billboard Lease Agreements. Recommendation here that the Billboard Lease Agreement details set out in the report and as recommended by Tourism Valemount be approved by Council. It's Council's wish. Councillor Blanchette, seconder. Councillor Pearson, do you have anything to add, Councillor?
Not really.
As liaison to the Tourism Committee?
No, I mean, my only comment is that these prices were renegotiated this year, so there were some increases, partly due to landowner changes and stuff, but that's why they're a little higher, and it's a 2-year contract this time, so.
Good. Further discussion?
I was just wondering if there's a possibility to do a longer term, or is it just 2 years? That's the.
I'm not sure. I would have to take that to staff or tourism.
Okay. I don't want to really see these numbers keep growing and growing and growing. So if we can get a longer date for a contract, then at least we know, for the next 4 years or 6. If you could bring that, would be great.
You'll do that, Councillor?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. All in favor of the Billboard lease agreement details? Carries. 9.4, we have a request from the Valemount Marina Association for their annual fishing derby. What is council's wish? Councilor Blanchette?
I'll move that we give them the funds they were asking for. This money is for nonprofits. And I'd like to also remind everybody, it is the 38th fishing derby, so it's not like they're a flash in the pan, pardon the pun, but they've been here for a while, and it's a good weekend for the kids, so.
It's up to council to decide.
What is the amount, Councilor?
It's usually $200.
200? Okay. Do we have a seconder on that? Councilor Pearson, any discussion on a $200 donation to the long-running annual fishing derby? All in favor? Carries. 10.1, under bylaws and policies, Village of Valemount Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 808, 2019 be adopted as presented. Sorry. Village of Valemount Fees and Charges Bylaw number 699, 2013 Amendment Bylaw number 808, 2019 be adopted as presented. Councillor G, Councillor Pearson, any discussion on final adoption? All in favor? Carries. Council reports. Councillor Blanchette.
Just the 15th, we had our housing meeting, and we're pushing through to get everything ready for our application date.
Awesome. Councillor Pearson.
August 19th, we had the meeting with VAX and other stakeholders for the sculpture walkabout in looking at options and placement. And August 20, attended the Interior Forest Sector Renewal session in McBride with Mayor Torgerson and Councillor MacLean. That's it for me.
Moving up the line, Councillor MacLean.
I attended the same two events as Councillor Pearson on August 19th, and Mayor Torgerson and Councillor Pearson. I attended the meeting with staff and VAX proponents at Centennial Park to discuss options for locating the proposed Bigfoot sculpture should the village decide to accept and allow it to be erected. And on the 20th, Mayor Torgerson, Councillor Pearson and I traveled to McBride to attend the Forest Renewal Policy Update meeting. The meeting was part of the Provincial Ministry of Forest, Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development's public consultation process, and was an opportunity for regional and local governments and stakeholders in the local forest industry to provide input to the amendments being made to the Forest and Range Practices Act. And that was all I did.
And the public comment period is open until October
No.
11th?
No, it's not. The stakeholder, this is part 2 of the consultation. The public part closed on July 15th. It's done.
Thank you. Councillor G? That was it.
That's it, thank you.
I've been very, very busy, but I haven't had anything council-related to report, so everyone must be on summer holidays.
We must be.
Yeah.
Thank you. The 15th, I attended Regional District Board and subcommittee meetings associated with that. The 19th, went for a site visit with Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean, staff, VAX, surrounding the art piece. The 20th, as mentioned, attended a forestry meeting for the Interior Forest Sector Renewal outline, hosted by District Manager John Hybris. Yesterday was pretty cool. I went out to the airport with our Superintendent of Public Works to attend a site meeting surrounding our fuel distribution system. It was attended by one contractor, and just want to reiterate the real historical knowledge and professionalism displayed by our superintendent. It was just outstanding. Sometime last week. Oh, the 21st, sorry. No, not the 21st, 22nd. I went on a bit of a business walk and checked in with management at the Valemount Vacation Inn to see how things are going over there with renovations and development permits, and see what we can do to get them through the Tourism Valemount door, perhaps a voice on the board, being from the accommodation sector. I think that's. Oh, I also had a conversation with Amy Ambrosoni. She's the executive director from the Columbia Basin Trust Delivery of Benefits. She wanted to make me aware of a service that they're funding called Hope Air. It's a national-wide funded non-emergency medical appointment air service that residents can take advantage of if they can't afford to get, say, to Vancouver. Hope Air can fly them from even here. They work with volunteer pilots in their own aircraft to get them to Prince George, to Kamloops, and then on to Vancouver. More information can be obtained through our medical team at our health center. And that's it for me. Motion please to receive council reports. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson. Any comments around any discussion, further discussion? All in favor of receipt? It's carried. We'll provide notice to proceed in camera under 14.1. That council proceed to an in-camera meeting for the consideration of one item per section 91K of the community charter to discuss matters related to K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Is there a motion there? Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, all in favor? Carries.